Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Laura. Welcome to another episode of Where Work Meets Life. This episode is on listening to the call to live your most authentic life. Live in studio with the artist Tresa Gibson. So you'll see that we're live in the studio for this recording. So I advise tuning in on the YouTube channel of Where Work Meets Life if you can, because you'll get to see Tresa Gibson's beautiful art and us live there in the studio. But you can also listen, and we will be talking about how she followed that calling to live her life, and she listened to that inner voice to make the change to become a full-time, very successful, world-recognized artist. So Tresa has beautiful art. It's a very unique impressionist style. It's oil on canvas, very, very bright colors, bold, lots of depth, and you'll see that there's lots of texture to her work. She paints just beautiful pieces, and she's been an artist for 20 years now, and she has had an interesting life story. She's dealt with some real adversities in her life, overcome the adversities, the fear, and listened to the calling. And I hope that you find this episode as inspiring as I do and enjoy learning from Tresa, learning from her journey and her wisdom. And I look forward to hearing what you think. Enjoy.
So Tresa, I'm going to ask you to tell us a little bit about how you got into art and a bit more about yourself.
Such a big question. Well, I was born in Victoria, British Columbia. My mother's British. We lived in England for several years and then moved here to Calgary during the 80s boom. And in Calgary, I grew up, high school, junior high, nothing really major, kind of a little bit of a challenging home life. And then I just found that I had more of a proclivity towards the creative sort of efforts within the community. And my boyfriends were always artists, and it never really occurred to me that I was. I became an improviser and did a little bit of acting in television and film during the SARS scare. And then when production sort of mainly went back to Toronto, I took a little community painting class one night a week for 3 hours for several months, and I found my venue. That was definitely meant to be. It felt completely right. I always knew, because I had sort of been living on my own since I was 16, that I was going to be a business owner. I just didn't know what my product was going to be. And once I started painting, I knew, and I never looked back.
Beautiful. So tell us, we're talking today about following the whisper, listening to the calling from within to find your authentic self and live your authentic life. So tell us how this calling of art came about for you.
Well, as I said, I always had a proclivity towards business. My business acumen was very strong, and living on my own since I was 16, I had to be good in sales and working, because I was obviously working for bosses and I needed to do a good job. High school diploma, that was my only education. And once I learned how skilled I was at selling and structuring business and marketing, I knew that one day I would be a sole proprietor or own my own business. When I went into painting and I started experimenting with it creatively, it just felt absolutely natural. It was magic. I hadn't really had a desire or a passion that was pulling me, other than my interest in business. I loved analyzing businesses and how they run and how they grew. I also loved fashion and dressing stylishly, doing my home a certain way. So I think all of these things are tells that the creative thought was there, the creative sort of gift. And then when I started painting, I painted and filled my home. I married very young, and I filled our home with the art as soon as I started doing the classes. And within a few months, I had a friend come for dinner. And at the dinner, she saw a couple of my paintings and she said, "I want to buy that painting. How much?" And I said, "Well, it's this price." I mean, back then it would have been pretty inexpensive. It was $600, or she could have an art show for me at her home and invite all the friends she knew from the gym in our neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And she said, "Absolutely, I'll have the art show." And I went around putting flyers around my neighborhood, introducing myself as a neighbor that was an artist. And before we even had the show at her house, I had booked 14 commissions. By that point, I never looked back.
Wow, that's such a great story.
It's true.
So this is 14 years ago.
Actually, it was a little longer now. That's probably from my bio. We need to update, I guess. But I have been painting professionally since I was 29 years old. So 20 years pretty much.
Okay, good for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Amazing. So I understand there's been, you said your life growing up, there were challenges, and you've had some other challenges I know about, you know, with your son and
Yes.
whatnot. And I want to know how those challenges fueled your art and how the art helped you get through those times. So,
Well, I think as far as the challenges, and that's kind of ties into our theme here of listening to the calling and the whisper. So growing up with a challenging family life, domestic violence issues, police at our house, that sort of thing. Probably some undiagnosed mental illness. So my immediate family has sort of all kind of tried to take their own lives and been in very sad situations. And I don't know how it is, but magically, this skill had to be built of problem solving. I needed to find a way to keep myself going and fuel my passion and feel hopeful. And I think that's where my creative spirit and the talent and the art grows. So I think, you know, being a very deep feeler, but being authentic and open about that, along with the problem solving, is probably what led me to the career that I'm in.
wow.
Does that help?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I know you said your son had some challenges and it's been
Yes.
a miracle. So can you
Yes.
tell us that story?
So an absolute gift. My son, I had a beautiful, beautiful, typical boy 20 yees ago, right when my career was at the height of flourishing. Like I had just had the show, booked all the commissions, and then found out I was pregnant. You know, I had my son. Oh, actually, it was after my son he was 2 years old, and I had started to paint again and really get into it. And I booked all the commissions. And then what happened is suddenly one day he had a seizure. And within a few weeks, he was having hundreds of seizures a day. And within a month, an EEG revealed a very specific spike wave that indicates a very severe form of epilepsy called Lennox-Gastaut syndrome. It's a very catastrophic, debilitating form of epilepsy that most often it's a pretty negative outcome, you know, right to either mortality or a very, very debilitated sort of brain function and a very challenging life in a facility. So we were on a really, you know, scary road. And but the reality of this is I knew that something had happened to get in my son's way. And I knew that he had been typical and healthy. And so I commenced research right away about brain activity. I started to receive, you know, books, information from different people. I talked to some practitioners sort of off record in different venues. And I really started to learn stuff about gut health, gut microbiome, all sorts of ways to help promote homeostasis in the body. I learned about an incredible metabolic treatment, a diet that is very regimented, that starves the brain of all glycogen, and then it's like ketosis. It's a ketogenic diet. The ketones go up and fuel the brain instead of glycogen. We were told that that probably wouldn't be an option for our son, but we, within 4 months of seizure onset, his liver or his kidney was compromised from all the medication. And by that point, he had regressed so severely, he was pretty much laying in a bed, grunting and catatonic, lost a lot of his skills, regressed. And so we insisted that we pull all meds cold turkey and commence the diet, started a big email campaign, hence the problem-solving piece that comes in. And again, I was listening to the call. I sat very quietly, and the instinct, my gut, the information I was receiving, that's where my spiritual side comes in. I believe that we all are connected energetically, and we have that instinct for a reason. I just think that aspect of science hasn't been defined yet. But I knew this was the answer for my son. And we started him on the diet, and within 48 hours, he was not having grand mal or tonic-clonic seizures anymore. And before that, he was having leptiform discharge every fraction of a second on an EEG. So it was so constant that his brain activity was just a mess. Within months, we got the seizures under control. And he broke some medical records at the time. At the time, he was kept on the diet. We kept him on the diet now, like for 9 years. And that's longer than anyone's ever been on the medical ketogenic diet for seizure control at that time. Now he is 20 years old. He is considered completely neurotypical. He eats just like anybody else, and his EEGs are completely typical, not even any atypical background activity, nothing. So that problem solving, that tenacity, that drive, supplementation, doing things to recover my son, it was an aspect of my personality. Before that, I had sort of married and had this lovely little boy, and I thought, I'm going to be the wife of a lawyer and raise my son, and this is my life, and it's a beautiful life. And this is where the call knocked on the door. That's not your path. You're going to have to do more. You're going to have to speak about health at symposiums. You're going to have to problem solve. You're going to have to grow and change and step into other roles.
Wow, that is such a miracle, that it's really about effort meets, different solutions and opportunity and perseverance.
Right.
You wouldn't give up. And a lot of people might have just listened to the mainstream medical advice, and it would have been a different outcome for your son.
And that's hard. Stepping away from aspects of your belief system or a paradigm that you hold, that you've lived with all your life. But you have to be true to yourself, and you have to listen. And we have our instincts for a reason. Mm-hmm. That's why, animals flee when we're in the bush. It's their safety instinct, and it's real. And I think in society, we've probably been trained a little bit to ignore some of that instinct.
Yeah.
And that's the call that I'm talking about, because that's a sudden one for saving your life. But I think, just like Oprah says, and people talk about, there's a whisper. There's always a whisper in your ear, inviting you to step into who you fully are. And I think the truth is, that's our duty in life. It's actually not just for us. It's our purpose as our role here. Mm-hmm. And I think if you say yes to that call, even though it's scary, the gifts, the abundance, the flourishing keeps coming. Mm-hmm. And that's why it's so important to me. But it's hard for us to listen. It is.
And we're often so busy, and we're so inundated with media, with information coming at us.
Yeah.
There's not that much space that we allow for the voice.
Yes.
Or the whisper.
Well, and there's a place in the world to be pragmatic. That's necessary. Absolutely. There's also a place to really trust your instinct and know that it's there and it's telling you something for a reason. Mm-hmm. And if we were to ignore something just because of the fear, we don't know what's waiting at the other side of that door. Like, everybody knows this. We sometimes stay in relationships that aren't good for us, or we keep a job we're not happy at. But the truth is, what if we listen to that invitation of our calling and we let go of the thing, and step into the unknown? As humans, we don't like the unknown. But if we had faith in our intuition, our gut, and don't let the fear decide, that's when the true abundance, the magic, the miracles take place.
What happened next, and how did your art help you get through it?
Well, sadly, my marriage didn't work out. My son's husband was a, perfectly nice man. That just wasn't a connect. And I think, 87% of couples who have a child with a chronic illness, or a child that is a patient of neurology, or even of the Children's Hospital for long term, that happens too. Sadly, men and women, I believe, deal with crisis differently. And sometimes that just doesn't work well. So the marriage ended. But I will say that there was an invitation, when, I don't know what to say, when my ex-husband left. I remember him walking out the door and saying, "You're going to have to get a real job now," like being a greeter at Walmart. And the thing is, there is absolutely nothing wrong with being a greeter at Walmart. I was a greeter at the Gap for years when I was 16. That job has honor and nobility, and you're interacting with people, and it's a hard job. It's not an easy job. I think, though, that it was meant in a derogatory way. And I thought, right then, and that was my challenge. That was my challenge. And that was the moment that I decided I was going to make this art thing work. So a lot of the time during the day, I would be shuttling my son around to his preschool where we were trying to get him to sort of recover, from his cognitive impairment because he was brain injured. And I would sort of help him go to these different programs, keep him busy. And then at night, when I would put him to bed, I would put the baby monitor in the garage and I would paint till like 2 a.m. and do these paintings. And then meanwhile, evenings and weekends, I would have all the wives in the neighborhood come and view my art for purchase in the house. So that's how I did it. And it's it is miraculous. It is crazy. It is awesome. And I was, I was the crazy lady, sure. And, nothing about it I did was perfect. Like, there were lots of nights with very loud music and a lot of wine. And there was, things to cope. All the parts, right? Yes. I'm sure, I used to open my garage doors and have like a sudden art show in the fall and in the spring. Sometimes we'd have these block parties where everyone would put their chairs out around my garage and drink wine and eat hot dogs while I painted in front of them all. That's how the life painting started. That was the birth of it. And actually, I didn't even realize that until this moment, saying it out loud, that's where that started, is the life painting in front of my neighbors in their lawn chairs in the back alley. Oh my gosh, so fun. Yeah.
So this is great because I went to one of your live art shows and it was to support a charity that
right.
we were raising awareness
Gems for Gems,
raising money for, which was awesome. And you painted right. in front of the whole group with a musician,
right?
A couple of musicians actually.
Yes.
And I saw you in action, and it just seemed to come from within,
right?
And it wasn't pre-planned, predestined in terms of like a plan. Mm-hmm. It was destined, I guess. But tell us how that comes out of you onto the canvas.
Okay, now I love this story and I love explaining this because a lot of people ask me that. Because unlike some artists, I have no image in my mind of what the painting is going to look like upon completion. What happens is I have a vague idea, maybe this color I'm into doing or working with this color palette today, and I know subject matter. Mm-hmm. But similar to when you get in your car to drive home from work, it's a route that you drive all the time. So you're driving along in the car, you're not really consciously thinking, I have to turn right here, I have to turn left here. You're kind of just doing it. You're in like a natural sort of meditative state as far as the drive home. And then you can think of other things. Well, when I'm painting a painting, I kind of open up that same way and I go into sort of an open, natural groove. Mm-hmm. And the painting kind of just comes through me. And I stand back and my instinct, a voice within, says, a little color over here, a little color over there. Okay, this needs to be thicker. This looks odd. Move that around. And that is naturally how the painting just comes out of me. And that, again, just like these other aspects of my life, it's just unfolded in this magical way.
Incredible.
I feel incredibly thankful. Yeah. Like, for me, it feels like a gift because I can honestly say that I didn't know this would be what I would do, but I did always have an inkling that there was something out there for me I was supposed to connect to. Mm-hmm. And this career and this way of creating is an absolute gift. And I fill my home with my art. And I walk around and there are moments where I see something new or I'm amazed and I can't believe I've created it. And that's simply because it's such a natural flow state and it just feels so good. It's kind of like when you see an incredible musician play the piano, like on their own, just, and they're riffing, they're just improvising. It's just like that. There's this natural way. It just comes over me and comes out of me. And I feel gratitude for that. Like that's a truth. I don't feel like it's mine. I feel like it's given to me. That's a truth.
What I love about your work is the textures. And my friend Deanna has it looks like the Matterhorn Mountain.
Oh, yes. Their Matterhorn was quite an undertaking.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Well, that was magical because that painting is quite large. I think it's 8 by 8, 8 foot by 8 foot.
Yeah.
And again, that was something I was like, I had done paintings similar, And then to do it at that scale would have been new for me. And I remember thinking, how am I going to do this? And it's the same thing. I just kind of let go. Okay, I got to just do it. And then the minute I let go, it came, and it was magic. That was magic. When I look at that one, I can't believe I did that. It was so crazy because people would come to the studio and take photos of themselves with the mountain, and it almost looked like they were hiking, and there was this mountain behind them. It's funny.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's just awesome.
Yeah,
So your work is oil on canvas,
correct.
and it's sold. It's in galleries all over the world.
Well, I'm out of the gallery in Kelowna at the moment, and the majority of the time I'm actually selling here out of the studio.
And it ends up all over.
Yes. Well, when you do it for about 20 years, like I have, and I'm a bit of an assertive marketer, you get a bit of a reputation. And then slowly over time, people move away. And then when people travel, they come to visit me because they've heard about me and they want something to commemorate the trip. That's when some of my smaller landscapes and things that reflect Canada or the Rockies go. So, friends in Europe and then their friends, and then a collector from here moves to England, and people who know her, see her art, contact me. Like, it just sort of grows. And now with media, it's very easy to, be seen in the world.
And your Instagram is amazing. It's just so personal and beautifully done.
Thank
And I would encourage others to check it out. And you've done a lot of flowers and floral, but you've also done a lot of trees.
Yes.
And tell us where the future is headed with your art.
Well, that's a great question. The trees were the bread and butter. The florals became the thing the last few years. I have been playing around a little on a personal level with my personal collection, doing some faces. The abstracts are just a gift. I mean, again, it's the story, the theme of listening to the call. When I first got this cargo bay that is now my studio and moved out of my garage, my son was 16, and he was finally ready. He was ready for me to have a little space, and he probably wanted me the hell out of the house. So he could bring girlfriends over. No, but yeah, so maybe a little. So I got this cargo bay the first year of COVID, and I remember being nervous because it was a lease. So it was a commitment, and it was listening to that call and stepping into the fear. And of course, there were all the voices in my head. What if I can't? What if I don't? And those are the self-sabotage, because if, you've had a vision or a reoccurring thought that keeps knocking on your door, in this space, I had seen it for a few years, and I had described it to my partner at the time, who was a realtor. And one day he came to my house and he said, I found the space. I found your space. And I leased this place. And what I did is I measured this front wall of the room we're sitting in, for those of you listening. And it's a very large wall. And I ordered a canvas that was 7 foot tall and 15 feet across. And what I did is I painted that painting, a full abstract, to cover that whole wall, absolutely for myself. It was exactly what I wanted, and I just went free with color and texture, and I did this huge painting. And I remember the day I finished it and hung it on this wall. It took 4 of us to hang it because it was so heavy and it was so large. It took up this whole wall across. And I remember filming it and posting a video of it on Instagram and Facebook, and thinking, what am I going to do? And even like some of the people I bought the paint from, they're like, you're going to paint on that canvas? Like, you're crazy. That's going to cost so much. No one's ever going to have a space for that. Like, what are you doing? Because it's such a huge size. And then sure enough, within 20 minutes of posting that video of that painting, I got a message. Ding. And it was one of my collectors who has several of my pieces. And she said, hey, did you paint that huge one for someone? Because I think I got a space for that. And I was like, oh. And that was that moment where I felt I was receiving the affirmation that I'd listened to the call, and they said, you're doing the right thing. Go for it. It's like the field of dreams. If you build it, they will come.
Charities are important to you. So how do you use your art to help raise awareness or make a difference for charities?
I have been incredibly fortunate that the sort of mainstream appeal of my work and me responding to the market kind of works together with what I'm inspired by. So I have throughout the years painted live and donated to many events. like Missing Children's Society, Gems for Gems, which is my charity of choice that I really like to support. Many others. One of the things that's been an absolute gift is my record year, and I'm going to throw it out there because being a small business and I had only been operating for a few years, but one year, just a couple years before COVID, my business raised $67,000 for local charities that year. And I was incredibly proud of that because somebody who has a high school education and is not formally trained in any career, to run a business and be able to give back to their community on that capacity, that made me feel official to me.
That's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. I feel proud about that.
So many people benefited from that.
Yes. Yeah. I feel really proud of that. I do. I don't shake when I say it because I worked hard.
So beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
So these questions I ask all my guests. What does work-life wellness look like for you? How do you stay well in your work and your life?
Well, I really appreciate this question and I appreciate having the discussion about it because I have to be honest, like I am a person that is intensely high energy, but with high energy output comes big crashes. I'm one of those. And I think that's probably why with entrepreneurs and artists, a lot of the time people say like you're, the tumultuous artist life and all of that. It's true about me. I feel deeply. I'm energetically impacted by my emotion. So in my work, my job, we always joke, it's a sexy arse job and it looks really pretty and fun. But the balance is the managing because when a crisis occurs or something happens in my life, I'm very honest about it, that something's going on, even with my work. And, it's a great outlet. If I'm really in pain, I will come and let go and truly give myself license to do a huge painting for me. But the other aspect is, oddly, there's a little bit of local notoriety. And when I'm having an off day, like I want to just go somewhere and maybe order a meal and sit and just unwind. And if someone recognizes me and I'm fighting with my partner or like feeling upset and exposed, it's kind of difficult. So I think being honest about that is the biggest thing. I'm not perfect. I like to put myself together well and I like to inspire people, but I'm emotional. I'm a lot. And I'm really true to that and honest with people. I expect a lot of myself. So I also expect a lot of others. So this is the balance. It's trying to use healthy discernment to rein in if I'm reacting instead of just observing what happens and dealing, and that's a work in progress. Like I'm a person, I'll be 80 and still working on myself. So I'm trying to do that, collaboration of work and home. I have a beautiful relationship with my son. The partners I've had are, some have been tumultuous, but some have been really good. And I'm happy for that, like supported my business. So that's been a gift, but I'm still looking to build a skill set I seem to have with the business and the art. I am still needing that within relationships and coming from a rocky childhood. That's where my learning is. So some people are so shocked that I can take this leap and do this job and take a risk of never having a regular paycheck. Yet I have envy and I look at them like, it would be my dream to be married for 50 years. I think that's beautiful. And I don't know how to do that. I don't know. I want to. And I try to build those skills, but that's something I don't know.
Yeah. So you're evolving.
Yes. Yeah.
You're growing. And I really appreciate your authenticity.
Thank you. Thanks.
I really feel like you do have great self-insight and you do see those signs when you're reaching capacity and you're reactive. And stressed right out. And it seems like your art is one of those outlets and also your social connections. You have some deep friendships.
Yes, it's true. One of the things I really know how to do is ask for help. And I actually really do oddly use some of my social media is like a journaling. And even though other people interact with it, I realize how much it's been a journal and a mirror for myself. Like I'm always vague. I'm never specific on there. It's not like I say, I really hate my kid today. We had a fight, but I'll write, when emotions get high and I'm running against this challenge, I, use this as an outlet and I want to learn this. And what I'm observing today is this. So I really love actually going back and reading it again and again to affirm to me what I've written about what I experienced. But the thing is, what I notice is my collectors feel that in my work. Mm-hmm. Many people walk into the studio and burst into tears. And I think that's because there's such an energetic connection to me and what I do. And I think it's opening a door and inviting people, giving them permission to look at their soul and be who they really are and realize that they could do whatever they truly want. Mm-hmm. And I want people to know that, because that's the truth. And it's not just a gift or an invitation to do what you really want. It's you to be of service of the world. Who are you to say no to what your true purpose is? Mm-hmm. I think you need to step into the call, because that's your role here. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so what do you read or listen to for your own growth and development?
Actually, people won't be surprised, because a lot of what I'm saying sounds like him right now, is Mark Groves. I absolutely love Mark Groves, the relationship expert. Mm-hmm. I've been listening to him forever, and he's a born and raised Calgarian. I'm a little bit of a Joe Rogan fan, which is very controversial, and I love it. As far as books, I'm reading a lot of fluff lately. I like a little bit of spiritual books. I also brought this book just because it was gifted to me and it was quite beautiful, by Suzanne Cain, Bittersweet, How Sorrow and Longing Make Us Whole. And the gift of this book was because, again, I've discussed this about how I feel deeply. And this author is writing about how to truly have joy in life. You actually have to have the pain. And, people who've experienced hardship and adversity have a higher capacity of empathy and compassion. And so although I feel a lot of emotional pain, and I'm one of those people that can get very dark, there's something about when I paint, even, I love being lost in the beauty of humanity and what that darkness is, meaning the light is laying right there beside it. And I think when you look at my pieces, it's reflected. I don't know. I hope.
There's a deep spiritual feeling here. And I know spirituality is hard. You're a believer in everyone being connected. And tell us a little bit more about your spiritual guideposts.
Mm-hmm. Well, I just think the truth is, if you look for miracles, you'll see them all around you. Mm-hmm. And I think that as humans, as babies when we're born, we only thrive and survive if we are nurtured and we have connectivity to our parents. We're the only mammals, pretty much, with that experience, other than maybe a kangaroo, but they're in the pouch. I don't know. So I think there is a message there that we need our tribe. We need connectivity. We need one another. And I think sometimes, because of technology and the world sort of accelerating at this pace that it is now, that's being lost. It's being fractured. And if you don't feel the connectivities to others, I mean, hundreds of mothers would contact me who also had problems with their children medically after I got the results I did with my son. And the greatest nugget of truth and information I could impart them with was to listen to their maternal instinct. Now, this is one of those things that they say, this isn't scientific, but the truth is certain hormones are released in us when our baby cries. That's our mother instinct. Mm-hmm. So there are many aspects that we just haven't really examined or gone close to. But honestly, if you touch your kid, if you smell their skin, if you touch their hair, if you feel them close to you, if you put your cheek up against their forehead, your instincts and your radars teach you so much about what's happening with them. I think that's to do with spirituality and connectivity. I think that us denying our connection to each other at a close level is something that can lead to a very lonely and closed off life.
Yeah, I was going to say isolation. That's the word that came to me.
Yes.
Feeling isolated. and disconnected. And then that's when the fear sets in.
And like, well, when you face that fear, and you have to go out of your comfort zone to find connection. Like I've been a person, sadly, I've been a little more feeling isolated, because my home life was not safe for me. And so it's always been a reach for connection, a reach for connection, a reach for connection. And probably sometimes for other people, that's unsettling because they've had belonging. So they don't know what it's like when you're sort of trying to grab out into the world and find the place where you belong. Yet it's ironic because these people come into my studio and I feel here, I create belonging for them.
Yeah.
And I'm so thankful for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a wonderful studio. So for those in Calgary, I highly recommend a visit to your studio. And the best way to find you is how?
My name is spelled very strange. It's Tresa Gibson. So Tresa Gibson on Instagram and Facebook. We also have an email you can attach. It's tresagibsonfineart@outlook.com. And we are by appointment only because it's a working studio where I create. And so our collectors come through by booked appointment, and Lindsay, my executive assistant, can set that up for you. And we can accommodate schedules, and people are welcome to come through and connect with the work.
Lovely. And my final question that I ask all guests is, what is one wish you have for a better world?
It's a tricky one. My wish is definitely for more connectivity and less technology. That would be my wish. I miss the days of talking to the lady at the grocery store checkout till. I don't know. Call me old fashioned. That's something I wish for.
Is that deep human connection?
Exactly.
All around us. But yes, technology can break down some of that.
That's right. That's right.
So thank you for all that you've shared today. We've covered a lot of ground.
Right.
Your story, how you persevered through different difficult challenges and hurdles in your life, and how you listened to the whisper, listened to the calling to create the career that you now have, the career of your dreams. What did you say? The arse?
The sexy arse job.
The arse job.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure to talk with you.
Yes, you too. And I look forward to more conversations and to sharing your journey with as many people as possible, because I think it's very inspiring.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tresa.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of Where Work Meets Life. If you found this content valuable, please rate and review the episode and share with others who may benefit. Visit me on my website at drlaura.live and sign up for my monthly e-newsletter full of tips and resources. I'm also a passionate keynote speaker and would be delighted to speak with you on your speaking needs. Stay well.